After 2 incredible battles, 2 controversial decisions, and a total of 24 rounds of furious leather, the rivalry between Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez was far from settled. While the championship accolades were important, each man craved something greater than achievement. They wanted to rewrite history, or at least the interpretation of it. Whoever won would not only capture the glory of this victory, but of glories past. The bell rang for the 25th round between Pacquiao and Marquez, and elements from their previous meetings resurfaced. First, Pacman's dynamic crouching lunges were finding their mark, allowing him to catch Marquez with long-range punishment, while keeping his head far off the center line.
Pacquiao, after 2 fights in 24 rounds, received good.
2 very clean fighters.
These guys have fought 24 rounds, and right now there's a lot of respect between both of them.
However, when Pacquiao missed, his far-leaning posture and outstretched limbs provided ample targets for Marquez, who landed rattling uppercuts and hooks to the body, just like their initial bout. After all, one way to reach the top of a tree is to cut it down, and Marquez was chopping through Pacquiao's trunk.
Marquez hasn't been able to tag him with anything good.
Second, Pacquiao was countering Marquez's one-off power shots just like he showed he could in their second fight. He baited these single shots with false starts and feints. And as Marquez whiffed, Pacman shoved jabs and straights through the center. Each missed punch from Marquez opened the door, and Pacquiao was barging in before Juan could shut it. With 1 round in the books, each man had tasted the other's gloves. They were both prepared for war, and it was time to head to the trenches. Preparing for the second round, Pacquiao's famed coach Freddie Roach told him to keep up with the feints and make Marquez commit. Marquez would not, and over the next few rounds, the Mexican reined it in, switching out his battering ram tactics in the first round for a lock-picking set in rounds 2 and 3. He kept right at the edge of Pacquiao's punching range, answering with quick combinations and cracking straights before drifting back to the outside. He also alternated his lead hand between an uppercut and body shots. Either way, he had to dip, leaving Manny unsure whether to protect his head or body.
Fight.
A bit faster than Marquez, and that's what's in addition to him looking physically strong.
While he has a guy in front of him who's his own.
But finally, at the end of the third, Marquez opened up a little, and Pacquiao found his opportunity, landing a hard counter right on his longtime adversary.
It's a straight right hand. There's a hard right hook by Pacquiao.
Marquez kept a good poker face, but the shot backed him up, proving that even a tight, simple-looking counter from Pacquiao could shift the battle lines. Marquez had a great couple of rounds, and one impactful counter from the Filipino politician would not sway the judges. With the start of the fight over and little to show for it, the 4th round offered plenty of fan-friendly exchanges. Despite both taking higher risks, it was still a virtual stalemate. As HBO announcer Jim Lampley put it, Pacman is by nature an attacker, but he's also a great counterpuncher, and Marquez is by nature a counterpuncher, but he's also a great attacker. And because of this, the fighters were left in a confounding position. Like trying to build a sandcastle between crashing and receding waves, they were supremely active without a lot to show for it.
Get back in position right away. A lot of speed. I mean, Marquez just looks so much slower than he does.
But then, that all changed.
Now Pacquiao begins to see free-flowing action from them.
In the final minute, Pacman caught Marquez against the ropes and bounded to the outside to land a looping left hook. Marquez answered back, bouncing off the ropes to fire a thudding lead body hook. After a quick headshot to raise Manny's guard, Marquez doubled down on the body. While Manny tried to retaliate, Marquez threw sand on the fire by shifting inside. Moments later, Marquez tried to intercept Pacquiao with a 1-2, but Pacman cut an angle and exited to the outside. From their opposite stances to their skill sets, Marquez and Pacquiao fought like mirror images, canceling each other's best tools by reflecting them back at their opponent. The sound of the 10-second clacker was like a starting pistol.
Marquez weight class.
Each fighter launched risky attacks, and the final exchange proved eventful.
Wait, good left hand by Pacquiao.
Marquez slipped outside Manny's jab to throw a rear hook, but it was deflected by a Pacquiao left that was already on the inside. The glove grazed Marquez's cheek, and Pacquiao's guard caught Marquez's lead body hook. However, a posture-altering right from Marquez carved around Manny's shoulder and crashed into his chin. While Pacquiao stumbled momentarily, he rushed back in like he was making up for lost time. Marquez had finished the fourth round strong, and he built on that momentum in the fifth. While Manny seemed reluctant to engage, Marquez filled the void by playing the bully. For nearly the entirety of the fifth round, it seemed like Marquez had a targeting system installed in his right glove. Finding the mark over and over, he turned Pacquiao and lowered his guard with lead uppercuts to set up stunning crosses. He slipped to deliver an overhand around Manny's jabs and long blocks. And in the final minute, Marquez landed the hardest punch of the fight, a septum-shaking right hand to counter Manny's fadeaway hook. Pacquiao's durability kept him upright, but if this kept up, he wouldn't just lose. Pacquiao would be taking a nap on the canvas. Far from the original plan of playing the counterpuncher, Pacquiao was forced to play the aggressor over the next several rounds. He did get better at finding the mark. However, that also opened him up to further blows from Marquez. Marquez was getting better and better at timing Pacquiao's head movement, predicting his head slots and intercepting with jabs, crosses, and especially shoveling uppercuts that threatened to shave Pacquiao's chin clean off. He also further refined the timing of his overhand. Like the last fight, he utilized split steps and deep inside shuffles to get close, building on it to find further avenues around Pacquiao's guard, sinking in body hooks and uppercuts.
Early effective. Just like that.
Good piece of footwork by Pacquiao in the center of the ring.
And then Manny throws a punch.
Pacquiao did have a flash of brilliance in the seventh, displaying footwork unmatched by most of boxing royalty. First, darting inside to draw a counter, and then back outside.
Thing to me is just seeing how effective Marquez is when landing with those clean, well-placed.
Amazing piece of footwork by Pacquiao.
Then shifting forward at double speed to leap into two impactful straights. However, these were fleeting moments that only lasted segments of a round. Marquez was dominating. Manny was still in it, but the damage was mounting. But then, in the ninth, as it seemed a possibility that Marquez could end up cruising to a victory, Pacquiao solved a crucial element of the puzzle. In what could have ended up as a simple exchange around the 90-second mark, Pacquiao landed a thumping rear uppercut after Marquez ducked a lead hook. So, he threw the same combination again. Marquez ducked the lead hook, and Manny met his chin with another rear uppercut. Pacquiao had found something, and he wasn't just going to the well. He was siphoning it as he threw repeated full-power uppercuts that seemed to shut Marquez's offense down. He smelled blood, and it spurred him to further punish Marquez with a blistering counter left. Not to be undone, Marquez answered with a stiff counter right hand. The war had now reached a fever pitch. This was the heart of the battle, a pure display of honed violence and championship grit, and the will to win. This was boxing, as intense and beautiful as ever caught on film. Only time would tell if it was a momentum shift or the final stand from a punched-up Manny Pacquiao. There are breaks in between rounds in boxing, but no one seemed to tell the fighters this as they picked right back up with the same intensity, engaging in further wild exchanges, where either man could fall to the canvas at a moment's notice. Marquez was still catching Manny with overhands, but now, with the threat of Pacquiao's newfound uppercut from round 9, ducking low was much more dangerous. And, with each man equipped with a primary weapon, the two chased victory through a firefight. But then, an unintentional headbutt opened a massive cut over Manny's right eye and stopped him cold. While most would expect Marquez to pounce, after all this time, this was his moment. It's possible that the headbutt rattled him too. The collision was bad enough that Manny had to eventually get 28 stitches. Despite the perhaps unavoidable lackluster action, Pacquiao did charge forward to end the round, darting in and out to catch Marquez with multiple solid left hands and a few clipping rights. Marquez momentarily rebounded by landing an impressive flurry in the 11th.
As Marquez lunged forward. Big left and a right by Marquez.
But Manny seemed relatively unaffected. Beyond that brief burst of life and a few choice counters, the 11th stanza was written by Pacman. Marquez was much less active, leading the HBO broadcast team to wonder aloud if the 37-year-old Marquez was fading due to father time. But perhaps this wasn't the case. Before the 9th, when Marquez ducked low, he was operating in free real estate, able to unleash his greatest attacks. By specifically targeting Marquez's low head movement with uppercuts and lead hooks, Pacquiao was charging rent, and if Marquez wanted to keep his head there, he might pay with a knockout loss.
Marquez, this weight is having a little bit more trouble.
However, as successful as Marquez was in the first 3 quarters of the fight, it's understandable why he may have thought he was coasting to an easy decision. While round 12 had some lulls, there were thankfully still some wild exchanges with whistling leather and crushing impacts.
Manny coming in and then counter punches. So all this waiting on him to come in and mess with the straight left.
Manny made a final push in the last 30 seconds, and Marquez, with whatever he had left, pushed back, each man making their final point to each other, to the crowd, and to the judges who really deserved the win. And then, just as he had in their 2 meetings prior, Marquez raised his hand in victory, believing in his heart that he had done enough to beat Manny Pacquiao. But at the end of the 12 rounds, they didn't ask the fighters who won. They asked the 3 ringside judges, and they turned a majority decision with one judge ruling it a draw. The other 2 judges picked a winner, and they saw it the same way. With mic in hand, announcer Michael Buffer read the scorecards, and Pacquiao had done it again. While the 3rd fight should have settled the score, this one was the most controversial of them all, with many ringside observers feeling that the fighter from Mexico had done enough to bring the belt home. Marquez was as close as he'd ever been to besting his bitter rival. But, believe it or not, he would get one last chance, and that fight would end in a knockout. If you'd like to learn more about the sweet science and other forms of martial arts, you can buy my books on power, footwork, and defense, linked below. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.